Kia ora. Welcome to this live chat that we're having today. Thank you so much for joining in. My name's Lisa, and I'm a Plunket line nurse here on Plunket Line. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and I'm really enjoying it. I'd like to introduce my colleague Alyssa.
Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa. I am also a Plunket line nurse along with Lisa, and I have been here for about 1.5 years now.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa. So today we are learning about summer safety. As a lot of us love summer, it's a great season for us to be doing things like traveling and going out and about with our tamariki. So some of the topics that we'll be doing today is talking about dehydration, overheating, and this does not include talking about fevers, which we'll go into a bit later, dog safety, safe sleep, kids around barbecues, and travel, and more specifically in cars. We won't be getting into sun safety or water safety because these are really big topics, as you probably can understand. So we do have 2 live chats at the end of that we did at the end of last year. So we'll pop those links into the chat. Awesome. Okay, so summer, as you know, summer is a great time for travel, and there's lots of things to bear in mind that come with that. So to get us started, Alyssa, I just wanted to ask you, how do we make sure tamariki and pepe are staying hydrated in this hot weather?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one sometimes because I think even as adults, a lot of times we don't drink enough water in the summer. So we really have to be more mindful for our children. Children can become dehydrated a lot faster than us adults can, especially as the younger that the babies get. So doing things like managing your feeding of baby and their water intake, or if they're breastfeeding, offering breastfeeds more often. So it may not be, kind of their normal feeding schedules, or maybe some extra snack kind of breastfeeding sessions in there to keep them well hydrated. Same kind of goes with babies who are formula fed or even mix fed, offering an extra bottle. Doesn't have to be your full bottle. You may offer, tends to be a normal feed, maybe 180 mils. You might just want to do a single scoop or 2 scoop bottle every now and then, kind of between your normal kind of big feeding sessions, just to again try and give them that extra hydration. If your children are of age where they are drinking water, giving them more water to drink, offering them lots of sippy cups, making it more fun for them, whether they have their ones and you might be putting some ice in them, or even some colored ice and things like that to keep it more interesting, enticing them to drink a little bit more. And if you've got little ones who are onto solids but maybe aren't eating whole foods yet, those mesh or silicone feeders where you can put things inside of them are really great, especially with things like watermelon right now. High water concentration in those. Also great snacks for obviously our older kids to have for hydration, but putting that watermelon into those mesh or silicone feeders are also going to get that extra hydration, or a bit of frozen breast milk or some frozen formula into those mesh feeders. But again, making sure that if we drop those, then those are basically in the bin. Um, Obviously, we all know water is ideal for our children, avoiding things that have extra sugars. But if you are really struggling to get that water in, then you can dilute some juices down, something like a 1 part juice to like 10 parts water, so that again, it maybe changes the flavor a little bit. You can do things like adding berries to their water, or a cucumber, or lemons and limes and citrus and that kind of stuff as well. There's those water drops at the pharmacy that you can use, or sorry, not the pharmacy, at the grocery store, that you can add in a couple of
Yeah.
drops of those. But again, yeah, the main thing would be getting our kids to just drink as much water as possible in the summertime.
Yeah. I also have talked to parents about using ice cubes in the cloth and letting them suck on the ice
Yeah,
cube, and that can
yeah,
be
yeah,
quite fun as well
yeah.
for babies and then
Great for
older
teething
children,
as
of
well.
course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what about for babies under 6 months? How
So
much
under
water that can they have?
Yeah, so under 6 months, cooled boiled water, ideally if you're going to be giving them water, and up to about 100 mils in a day. Again, if you've got breastfeeding babies, trying to offer that breast first, and then kind of the younger that they go, kind of under the 4 month mark, ideally you're going to be sticking to your breast milk and to your formula. Or if they've started solids, then again you can offer that water with their solids as well.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I really liked how you talked about having high water content as well,
Yeah,
and even adding a little bit of breast milk or formula into the food just to make it a little bit
yeah,
more sloppy if babies aren't
yeah.
aren't really
Sneaking it
wanting
in.
to. Yes, yeah, it's
Yeah,
all about the sneaking.
yes.
Yeah,
Sometimes it is.
yeah,
If it has to
yeah,
work, it works.
yeah. Yeah, cool. So what about overheating? I know that some at the moment some of the weather has been a
Mm.
little bit off and on, not being so hot, but um sort of like what do you give advice around if you feel like your baby's overheating or something like heat stroke?
hmm So I think overheating is probably quite a common topic that we get at Plunkett Line right now for phone calls, because it is really challenging to how to know to dress your child, especially when they're going down for overnight sleeps or for their naps. Not everybody has, heat pumps, air conditioning in their houses, let alone in bedrooms, to be able to keep those rooms cool. So having a
Mm,
really good idea of what your temperature is in the bedroom, um, it can be pretty important other than just feel. So buying a really cheap thermometer to have like in the bedroom, either whether it's just kind of somewhere near baby's cot, or a sleep space, that you get an idea of what you're kind of dealing with for temperatures. And it's all about layering babies. Obviously the younger
mm,
our babies are, and it's quite a difficult topic to cover because we deal at Plunkett Line deal with children up to the age of 5. So
mm,
most of the time that's a challenge is those younger babies, so almost those newborns, um, where people are like, in the wintertime, you'd bundle them up and swaddle them. So a lot of times it's layering them and using natural fibers. So cotton, merino wool, which is going to help draw the moisture away from the body, keep them with really
mm,
good temperature regulation, as well. And sometimes if it's really warm, if you've got them dressed appropriately, they may not need a swaddle or blankets, or if you are going to choose to
mm,
use them, making sure they're really lightweight ones. And again, cotton, muslin, or those merino wool ones to kind of try and keep them nice and cool. Another big thing that happens, and probably our main calls, I think, with people who are concerned about overheating their babies, is in cars or if they're out in their prams. Um, One of the biggest ways that we overheat our baby in these is, especially in a pram, is we pop a cover over them, and we want to try and protect the babies from the sun, but at the same time, we're creating almost like a little oven in there. So if you're going to cover
mm,
them, make sure it's lightweight and that you've got little areas that you're opening it up so that air can flow through on both sides. And when you stop moving, you're in the shade, you take them off, and baby comes out of the pram.
mm,
Or if it's in the car, you need to check the temperature of the seat, check the clips, the metal clips, to make sure they're not really, really hot. Because
mm,
sometimes if your car is parked in the sun, we all know when the car opens, you get that heat wave that hits you. If it's been
mm,
sitting in the sun and we grab the steering wheel, it's hot to our hands. Well, we can only imagine if those clips, the plastic clips or the metal buckles, are like that in the car seat, how that's going to feel on a baby's skin. So again,
mm,
checking the
mm,
temperature of those. If you're traveling, ideally, you're going to have an adult sitting in the back seat with a younger infant so that they can keep an eye on their temperature, to try and make sure they are kind of staying cool. Again, the hard thing is when we're popping babies down for bed and it could be 25, 26 degrees in their bedrooms. And then in the night, as it kind of warms up, or sorry, cools down a little bit, we may need to add layers onto them. But again, that's
mm,
all about layering. Things that you can do to try and cool a room or keep it a little bit cooler is hanging wet towels over chairs or over the windows, and opening those windows at nighttime. Once the kind of,
mm.
ideally those mosquitoes aren't going to come in through the windows once they're open. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, and then that way you can kind of help kind of cool that room down a little bit as well. I have heard about putting ice in bowls in front of fans. I haven't
fans.
tried it. But
I've heard that
um,
about that too. Yeah.
yeah, so maybe it works like a little mini at home do it yourself kind of aircon unit. And then again, speaking about fans, if you are using a fan to kind of blow and cool the room down, we just don't want it to be kind of directly facing or blowing onto the babies. Um, and then if you're not sure if your baby is overheating at night, taking your hand, popping it down their back between their shoulder blades and have a feel. Obviously if
Mm,
they're sweating, they're too hot, and have a feel kind of down their back for what that temperature is, and comparing it against yourself as well, or their chest, to see kind of, is it really a lot hotter uh,
mm,
than the rest of their body would be.
yeah. Cool. And another point is with sleep sacks. So
Mm.
if you're using a sleep sack, just making sure that it is a summer specific,
Yep.
or something like a merino that, like what
Hmm.
you talked about, having natural fibers as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
love sleep sacks. Love sleep sacks.
yeah,
Sleep sacks are great as long as, right, you're using the appropriate size, based on the manufacturer as well. Some of them have the little buttons on the arm, because the main thing is, right, especially with our younger babies, we don't want them kind of flying up over their face,
mm,
um, which those buttons under the arm will help. And just making sure that you're following the size or the weight guide that they make. And some of them have really great, for their manufacturers, they'll have online, or there are some great sleep guides online about how to dress your child, and they'll kind of tell you, like, okay, here's your room temperature and here's what your layers should be on your baby. Now, obviously, that's a guide because every
mm,
baby is a little bit different, um, but it's a good one to kind of refer back to if you're really not sure how many layers that you should be popping your little one in for sleep.
cool, awesome, good chat. Oh, um, as some of us have done in the past and will do, is camping. So,
Mm,
camping in tents, taking our babies and young children on a camping trip.
hmm
What's your sort of ideas around camping and sleep, safe sleep?
hmm I love camping. My family, we are campers. So yeah, we've just come back from a camping trip over Christmas and it was fantastic. Big things are, right, obviously most people have air mattresses for sleeping. Although I say that, and a lot of people are going to like the self-inflatable mattresses and stuff like that. But main thing is those are generally not advised for children under the age of 2. Again, you'd have to double check the manufacturer's recommendations. But again, those are not firm bases, right? Which is what we always want for SUDI prevention, and for a safe sleep environment for our babies. And then also, a lot of times, if you've got multiple children or parents sleeping, you may be co-sleeping, which again, not safe practices. But again, if you've got a parent in a bed and a young child, easily to roll into the parents
Mm,
because of that weight imbalance as well. So safest thing is to use a wahakura, a pepe pod, or a porta-cot that you can take with you. And there are porta-cots that are a lot smaller than kind of your traditional ones, that are travel porta-cots as well.
mm,
And again, we all know during the day that tents can get very hot. So if you're at the camp, getting all of your kind of your ventilation up and going, windows up, doors open, so you can really get it vented out, especially if it's before sleep, or a nap.
mm,
There's all these fancy blackout tents and stuff now, which do help to kind of decrease the heat inside of those tents as well. But um, yeah, so just being really mindful again of the temperature inside when you pop babies down to sleep as well. And again, those layers, and potentially having to remove layers for nap time.
mm. Cool. We're going to talk about water play, and there was a specific question
Yeah.
around toddlers being supervised around sprinklers. Um, I think there is. They do say it's only a matchbox size amount of water that a baby can potentially become like potential drowning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what are your thoughts around supervision around sprinklers and water play,
Yeah.
Alyssa?
Again, I love water play. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. We are doing water play constantly at our house. Great way to kind of cool down a baby that you think is overheating. Um, and again, touching base on that overheating, we're talking about doing things like water play. This is not for your children who have fevers, okay, to do water
Mm.
play or cool them down with cool cloths. If you do have a child who has a fever, give us a call at Plunkett Line and we can kind of go through your fever management and things like that. So, again, water play, cooling down with cloths, or cool tempered baths are not for fever management. Water play is, again, one of those ones, it does need supervision, especially if you've got, flexi tubs with water in them, right? Great for water play. Lots of splashing, refilling of buckets, transferring, all that kind of stuff. Children can fall into them, right? If a 2-year
Mm.
old falls into a flexi tub upside down because their heads are heavy and you're not around, they can get trapped in there and there could be, serious harm, fatalities that happen. So anytime there's water, there should be parents within kind of arm's reach or closely supervising. And I would think the same would go with sprinklers. Sprinklers,
Mm.
even though, yes, maybe it'll be on a lawn, your lawn generally becomes quite slippery or muddy. So even a running toddler could fall, hurt themselves. So yeah, again, I think making sure that supervision around water just becomes kind of a blanket, that there is always an adult around if there's water being involved in play.
Perfect. Cool. Okay. Now, we any tips around traveling over summer
Yeah.
with kids, older children, and
Yeah.
babies?
Yep, just kids in general, isn't it really?
Yeah.
Biggest thing is always making sure you've got lots of food and water on hand. And I grew up in Canada. My mom always taught us growing up, you always have to have in your car food and snacks and water enough to last you 24 hours. In Canada, it was more so if there was a snowstorm and you got like snowed in your car kind of thing. But same kind of goes with New Zealand. Roadworks are constant here,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what the traffic may tell you on your GPS, but you can get stuck in roadworks. And the last thing you want to do is have screaming children in the back um, who are out of water. Everybody's out of water, and your car is now really hot, or that you've run out of snacks and things like that. So making sure you've got lots of it on hand.
Mm.
Couple extra water bottles. One for everybody
Yeah.
basically in the car is kind of a good rule of thumb. Again, talking about the temperature of the car seats, making sure that they're not too hot, making sure that you know how to use your car seats safely and snug. Because even though I think some people think, okay, if I loosen the car seat, they're not going to get so hot. But again, that then becomes you're not using it according to the manufacturer's
Mm.
discretions. And you do end up having kind of then an unsafe car seat. So other ways to kind of watch about your travel and keeping your car cool, keeping sun off of babies when they're in the car is using sunshades on your windows. Lots of different ones on the market. Stick ones, there's ones that fit over the entire window. So getting one that's the best fit for your car, especially if you don't have those tinted windows, because again,
Mm.
very easy for a child who's sitting in the back seat to overheat. Because a lot of times, even if you got the air conditioning going, it doesn't reach the back of the car
Mm.
uh, as much. So, sorry. And things like I think it's very popular for people to use those capsule covers
Yeah.
to go over top, especially right. Very convenient capsules in the car, click babies out, pop them in the pram, walk around the mall, go for a
Mm.
walk around outside, pop this cover on, we're protecting baby. Again, we're creating like a little tiny oven in there. Um, so using the aftermarket can sometimes go against your manufacturers of your car seats or your capsules. And a lot of times they need to come off when you're traveling as well. So if you're going to use those, taking them off as soon as possible. If you are driving, making sure you're stopping every kind of 2 hours maximum, getting
Mm.
everyone out of the cars, out of the car seats, letting everybody have a run around and a stretch and a cool down, drinks, snacks, because you don't want to be offering snacks with kids in a car seat because that increases the risk of choking. And then, of course, if you're driving down a motorway at 100 kilometers an hour and your child's choking in the back, one, you may not even know that they're choking, or two,
Mm.
you now have to try and slow down safely, safely pull over, get your child out, and try and kind of do some emergency maneuvers and things like that there as well. So, um, another big thing, kind of, it's one of those ones that happens all the time, and you have to be reminded, is to never leave a child in a car. Not for 30
Mm. Perfect.
seconds. not
Yeah.
for 5 minutes because I'm just going to run into the dairy. Um, Cars get hot very quickly.
Yeah.
People lose track of time very quickly. If you've got a sleeping baby in the car, I'll just run in the house and I'll come back and check on baby in 5 minutes. 5 minutes turns to 25 minutes, and that car can get very, very hot very, very quickly. One thing that you can always do is if you are traveling, and it's a tragedy that happens
Mm,
every year, in multiple different countries, and
mm,
we're sleep deprived parents. We are tired. If you're the one doing the
mm,
daycare drop offs, it's very easy if you've had a rough night to just put yourself on autopilot, drive to work, forget a baby who's quiet in the back of the car.
mm,
And terrible things can happen. So things like putting one of the shoes that you're wearing, put it in the back seat behind baby's seat. Put your
oh, that's
purse,
great.
put your work bag, put your laptop bag,
Mm,
whatever it is that your lunch bag, something you always grab to take into the office or your work environment with you, put that by your baby. So it forces you to double check that car seat before you get out of that
yeah.
car, right? So it's just those extra little, doesn't take much. You probably have to open a door anyways to put that bag in the car or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You're not going to go into the office without a shoe on or to work
Yeah.
without a shoe on. So putting it there,
Mm,
so that again you can kind of grab it and be like, oh my, if there was that ever you forgot, or sometimes it happens too, right? If dad does drop off one day, or the other parent does it the next day, and who's taking baby today, or
mm,
it's maybe not your norm that you're the one that's doing that drop off that day. So yeah, just being pretty vigilant. And yep, again, I use my mom as an example because it's something she's always done with us. I mean, I'm obviously, we're adult children. My mother still puts her purse in the back seat of the car because that's the habit that she created when we were little. So it's something that kind of we work on in our family too, is putting something that has to go into work with us by the children every time we're kind of out the
mm,
door.
yeah. That's such a great tip. I've never heard of that before.
Have you
That
not?
was really
There you
good.
go, Lisa. New
Yeah.
one for you.
Cool. Um, we've just got a few questions around plane travel.
Mm.
Um, sort of similar, like taking snacks. We
Mhm.
recently took a plane ride for an hour and a half, and it was really good having extra snacks. I know that the
Mhm.
airplane does give a couple of biscuits, but
Mm.
having snacks is really good. Uh, any other sort of things you can think of,
Yeah, so plane
Alyssa?
travel. Okay, I'm again Canadian. We did the trip
Yeah.
last 2023
Ah,
with my 3.5-year-old, 1.5, just over three, just over one to Canada, which was two planes. It was a long trip, but it was good actually. It was good.
yeah.
And I took all the snacks I
Yeah.
could think of because I was like, when in doubt, just a snack.
Snack.
So plane travel, lots of snacks. Obviously, the planes offer bottled water. So making sure that you're using that, because right when you go through security, you've got to have empty water bottles, but you can still take your refillable ones with you. So again, it's familiar for your child. Um, so doing that, and then most places, if you're traveling domestically, it's a bit different. But if you're going international, as long as if they're open or in homemade foods, you can take them on that initial flight, but you need to dispose of them before you go through customs and that kind of stuff. So
Mm, mm,
I took lots of packaged things. I took lots of stuff I knew that my kids were going to eat. And we kind of just took the normal snacks. We didn't go crazy with anything. My youngest was still kind of having like applesauce pouches and that kind of stuff, which again, great for hydration. They do get the food on the plane. Some kids love it. My kids didn't, but again, I had lots of snacks for them for when we were around there. If you are breastfeeding, obviously, it's if you've got covers and that kind of stuff for when you're on the plane. Um, if you're bottle feeding, you need to be very mindful of that to make sure that you're taking enough
yes.
bottles, enough formula with you on the plane. And if and I would also recommend, let's just say you've got a double flight internationally, your second, your bags may carry on, which have your tin of formula, and you get stuck in an airport for an extended layover that you weren't anticipating overnight, making sure you've got extra formula that's going to get you through kind of 24 hours if you needed
Mm,
to,
yeah.
especially if you've got a baby who's on a specialized formula. something like a
Yes.
prescription formula, or it may not be easy depending on where you're going to find a formula, and making sure that you can take your water onto planes. You just have to declare it and say it's for my baby, because it's not recommended. And I've got some friends who are stewardesses on airlines. You cannot use the boiled water, like the hot water on the planes, to effectively clean um, your bottles and things like that. So either lots of different things on the market. There's wipes, there's sterilization tablets, there's the
Mm,
microwave sterilizing bags that you can use if you've got the wipes to clean the bottles, or if your baby is young enough, that you just need to make sure you basically have enough empty bottles as well. And
yeah.
travel affects your children's sleep. We get lots of these phone calls as well that
Yes.
people have, right, that have I've traveled, I'm now home from wherever we are, and it's, been home for 3 days, my baby's still not sleeping well, and they're waking up and
Mm,
all these kind of things. So expect when you're traveling, new environment, potentially different time zones, all those things, and then you're traveling back, longer days, your baby may not sleep
mm,
well. Especially if you've had a whole day
yeah.
of travel and you've got a little infant who seemingly has had a great day of travel because they've slept most of the
Mm,
day. They're going to be harder to settle at night and potentially have more night wakes. So just
yes.
paying attention that it's going to take time to adjust. And
Mm,
kids aren't the same as us, right? We travel, we get jet lag, we go, I'm going to have a little tiny power nap to get me through. You force yourself to get up early. You kind of do all these things to get your clock onto the new time zone.
mm,
Babies don't have that concept of time, so it takes them longer for their circadian
okay.
rhythm to kind of gel with the sun and that kind of stuff to kind of mesh up again. So just
Yeah.
give them a bit more leeway than kind of normal, and just, yeah, expect that they're not going to sleep that great most of the time.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's change the subject totally.
Hmm.
And we going to talk about barbecues and just around
Yeah.
safety around barbecues. Um, what's so? I mean, barbecues are hot
Hmm.
and they burn. So
Yep.
trying to keep the babies and children away from barbecues at all
Hmm.
times.
Just like an oven,
And
right?
yeah,
Yep.
just like an
Same
oven.
rules
Yeah,
apply. Yep, same
yeah,
rules apply.
yeah.
Again, I think probably camping, you're gonna have fires as well. You may have bonfires, that kind
Yes.
of thing, or open flames for cooking, right? A lot of times you'll have more like cob grill type styles that are more flames, um, or gas barbecues, things like that. So just teaching them again, the same safety applies. So you keep your distance, and you need to monitor your kids. If you've got a
Mm,
barbecue and it's like a little Weber one, you've got it set on the ground. Well, you need to kind of have somebody standing there, almost like a security guard for the barbecue, to make sure that kids don't come running and falling into it. Um, and that goes for after it's off as well, because it's still hot. So,
yes.
right. So, teaching
Yeah.
kids that this is, so if you are out and about and you're at a picnic, you've got the Weber, take it away from the main cooking area, take it somewhere
Mm,
where the kids aren't really playing, so that you
yeah.
kind of are increasing that factor, that you've got kind of more safety and space around it to keep them safe as well. Other things with barbecues, which is one that I've seen it on a Instagrammers once, was cleaning the barbecues. Very traditionally, we use those metal bristle brushes. A lot of times, most of us have pretty manky looking ones that are pretty old, and
Yeah.
those little bristles can fall off and get stuck on your grill. You then chuck your burgers on it, or your
Mm,
sausages, or whatever it might be, and the bristles can get stuck into the meat, and your child can then, or an adult, can ingest it. And it can then either
mm,
get lodged in their throat, causing a lot of
yeah.
pain, or into the stomachs, causing lots of pain and trauma. So just making sure that you're really either inspect your brush. Probably not a bad idea to get a new one pretty regularly, I would say.
Yeah.
Checking your bristle, checking your plate beforehand, whether that's kind of before you turn your breast, before you turn the barbecue on, giving it a rub down, and kind of giving it a rub down with maybe some paper towels or something when it's kind of cleaned, making sure that it's fine. And there are other alternatives now to those kind of standard metal wire brushes. There are kind of
Mm,
more like scrubby pad kind of ones now that are a bit safer as well for that.
yeah. Cool. Okay. Dogs. I think we
Dogs.
saw about 5 dogs today on our walk.
Yeah.
And uh, there was actually a time where there was like, I think there were 3 dogs just with one person.
Mhm.
And something that I have recently heard of is, especially when dogs are in a pack, they can they are more susceptible to uh, being unsafe around children.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so my children are a bit older, but we sort of guided ourselves away from or the dogs, and that calmed my nerves
Yeah.
as we walked past, was going around them. um and yeah, a lot of dog owners are pretty good at telling us parents if they are safe
Mhm.
around children or not.
Mhm.
But yeah, what's your sort of
Yeah.
ideas around dog safety? And
Yeah, so dogs are always a tricky one because it's I mean, look, I love dogs, don't get me wrong. I've always grown up with dogs. I love dogs. Now having children, I think I have a very different perspective on dogs because I've never
mm,
had fears of dogs, even big dogs. We had big dogs growing up. But I think now having children, I'm more mindful, way more mindful
yes.
kind of around dogs because even if somebody says to you, this is a friendly dog,
mm,
it is still a
True.
dog that you cannot tell you other than barking or growling at you that it's not a happy camper. So
Yes.
they are still animals that have their own kind of, personalities and whatnot. So if you first and foremost, before you approach this dog with your children or your children go running up to a dog, you need to stop them. You need to educate your
mm,
children. And first is asking the owner, is your dog friendly for my child to pet? And asking them, can my child pet your dog? Because there
yeah.
is nothing worse, which I remember with my dogs, people just walking up assuming that you can pet my dog. We had friendly dogs, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't just walk up to someone and start patting their head. You would ask
Yeah.
first, permission. So you would ask permission first. Can my child pat your dog? Is your dog friendly? And then be with your child. Don't just send your child off to go
mm,
pat this stranger's dog. Guide your child, right? Because a lot of times kids are
yeah.
going to be like, okay, I can go pet this dog. Hands are going to go directly above that dog's head, over their eyes. That freaks a lot of dogs out. And
mm,
that's when you've now got the right in kind of what I would say is a strike zone for a dog to nip,
mm,
right? Either at their
yes.
hands or at their body, at their face. Take your child in with a closed fist on your child. Hold your hand
mm,
over your child's hand. Allow the dog to sniff your
Sniff.
child, right? If the dog snarls its lips a little bit, backs away, barks, growls, you just calmly and slowly remove your dog from the situation, right?
Yeah.
And just say, oh, maybe this dog doesn't want to pat today. That's okay. It's a dog. It's allowed to be like, I don't want you around me. And
mm,
that's okay. If the dog seems to sniff your hand and is okay, then you can kind of ask the owner, is there an area that your dog is okay with me petting? Generally, it might be down the back. The dog might kind of walk up and nuzzle into you. Follow the cues of the dog. If
mm.
it is a rogue dog that is running around, which happens a lot in New
Can
Zealand,
happen.
I've
Yeah.
noticed. Yep. Um, keep your distance. If you've got a stick or something like that, yelling at the dog from afar, protecting your children if it is coming aggressively at you. If
mm,
it's just kind of going about its business, I would again exercise caution. I wouldn't just start and pat this random
yeah.
dog. Um, but yeah, so those are kind of your main things with them. Is really just kind of it's a lot of it is teaching a child about respect for an animal,
Yeah. Totally.
right? Really respecting
Yeah.
the animal, respecting what they're telling you,
Yeah.
and just because the owner says it's friendly doesn't mean that it's always going to be
mm,
receptive and wanting a pat at that very
yeah.
moment. So,
Yeah.
and never pat a sleeping dog. My God, don't let a child just go up
Well,
and disturb a sleeping dog.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. And lastly, we are going to talk about bugs and
Oh yeah,
bug
bugs.
bites.
Mm,
Uh, Over the summer, we do get a few calls about bug
mhm,
bites, whether they are just red and a little bit swollen, and then we do get
mhm,
some calls where they do need to um, seek medical attention. And
mhm,
don't don't be don't hesitate to call us if you are worried about a bite or bites
mhm.
on your baby's skin. Please call us and we can do an assessment over the phone. And
Mhm.
we do also have the ability to take a photo, for you to take a photo and send it to us and for us to have a look at it as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's lots and lots of bugs out there, whether they're mosquitoes,
Mhm.
spiders,
Mhm.
different things that can bite you in
Yeah.
the environment, whether you're camping or at home. So yeah, there's a few different things that we can talk about around bugs and bug
Mhm.
bites.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, yeah, I think most countries in the, well, a lot of countries anyways, Canada's the same. Summertime, lots of mosquitoes out, sand flies, that kind of thing. So most of the time it is kind of, aside from your, general stuff we would do for ourselves, layers, right? Long sleeves, long pants, going to decrease your risk for a bug bite, especially if you're out camping. Generally it's kind of that dusk area, trying to do things to try and prevent mosquitoes, right? We all know that having stagnant water, so whether that's bird baths,
Mm.
you know, water, like those water for gardens. What are they called? I can't think of it right now. Water basins kind
Fountain?
of thing. No, it's like the one that
Fountain?
you used to, like a water container that you'd hold water to water your garden with.
Oh,
Like you
yes, yes,
collect
yes,
roof
yes.
water off of. I can't remember what it's called, but anyways, one of those that might be open. Just buckets
Yes.
of water laying around, huge breeding ground for your mosquitoes, right? And increase your kind of
Mm,
around your house. So getting rid of that kind of stuff, layering with your clothing, so you've got those long layers to protect the skin. There are bug sprays or bug repellents on the market, whether some of those are natural versus kind of manufactured, um, that are safe for young kids as well. You have to talk to, or have a read of the label. Ideally, you're going to be looking for something that's DEET free for children as well. Best person to talk to is going to be a pharmacist about that. Tell them how old your children are, what you're looking for. There's huge sections in some of the pharmacies of different bug sprays and
mm,
ointments and lotions. And there are also, if your children does get bit by a mosquito or whatever, and they do have a mark that's generally quite itchy, again, there are different ointments for kind of dealing with those. Talk to a
mm,
pharmacist if you think that antihistamines might be appropriate to be using. Um,
mm.
and a lot of times kids love Band-Aids, right? We should all have taken up stock in Band-Aid when we have children. And, popping a little bit of the cream on it or even just a plaster over it so they kind of forget about it or can't get to it as easily to kind of itch at it. Um,
Yeah.
and if you are using things like bug sprays, a lot of us have them, right? For adults, we've got them. We use them for a short season and then they either get chucked in the camping bin, chucked into the cupboard, but make sure you check expiry dates on those because they do expire
Mm,
and they do
mm.
lose their efficiency. Um,
Yeah.
but again, it's just about kind of trying to decrease our risk of getting those bug bites and
Yeah.
things like I live up in Auckland. There was a huge kind of massive thing a couple of weeks ago with sea lice, and it was all in the news, kind of about kids that were just kind of covered under their swimsuits. So if you are
Mm,
going somewhere, checking the water safety quality to see if there is any kind of warnings out
mm.
there, and if you do
Yeah.
think that you come into contact with something like sea lice, it's getting your swimsuits off as fast as possible and rinsing in fresh water as soon as
Yeah.
you can after coming into the ocean.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you for
Lisa.
sharing your expertise today.
You too.
It's been really, really awesome. And thank you for everybody that has been watching this live today. Awesome. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.